That made about 5,000 this month. Plus, how much does it cost us? Well, it's like 95% profit. We're like, okay, so we made four and a half, in profit there. We're like, how much money do we need to make as an agency to make that kind of amount? We were like, a lot, a lot more, and it's a lot more hassle. And we were looking at ourselves and kind of going, do you know what? Maybe we should just do this.
Welcome to Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast, where we share inspiring startup stories with practical takeaways for you, the listener. Today's guest is Sam King, also known as Sam King for the win. At the age of 16, he created a YouTube channel that grew massively to over 160,000 followers, but eventually gave that up, and now he's one of the co-founders of Flick.tech, which is a social media tool that helps influencers and businesses grow fast. They've already reached 3 million in annual revenue. Welcome to Entrepreneur's Handbook, Sam. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here too.
So you've got a really interesting story because you started on YouTube, built a huge audience there, then made a switch into marketing, and now you run your own business. Can you tell people that journey, explain it in more detail, please?
Yeah, so I think I've had quite an unconventional way into the world of entrepreneurship. I kind of started off when I was 16. I used to watch a lot of YouTube, or 15, something like that. Watched a lot of YouTube. I was like, you know what, I might try this thing out, and did that. And, this was kind of a long time ago. So I'm 25 now. So it's 10 years ago. And YouTube was a little bit different to what it is now. So not quite as hypey and maybe a little bit more embarrassing at the time. But yeah, so we started YouTube and I did that for quite a long time, I think 5 or 6 years. When I was 18, that was how I made money. That was my income. So I moved to London to focus on it a little bit more and kind of just explore the world a bit. But after a while, I think I kind of realized that some of the bits that I really, really loved about YouTube was more on the marketing side. So it was I really loved optimizing my thumbnails and my title to see if I could drive more clicks. Or it was okay, well, I create this piece of content here, which is a way to get mass awareness, but then you have these pieces of content which are a bit more engagement focused. And I loved all of that stuff. I made a types of videos that were more personality based, more kind of fun, challenging stuff. So it meant my audience was quite a lot younger than I was. So after a while, I think there kind of started to become a disconnect between maybe what I wanted to do in my life and, what people would actually watch. So I was kind of caught between making a lot of content that was, more geared for people that, for people rather than doing stuff for myself. And during that time, I had the opportunity to start working with a few friends on an influencer marketing agency. So kind of obviously I worked with a lot of brands at that time, and I felt like there was quite a solid gap in actually maybe this could be done a little bit better and a little bit differently. And we kind of gave that a crack for a bit. During that, as a 20-year-old or whatever it was, very quickly became apparent that we did not know how to run an agency. And we gave it our best, but it just wasn't as smooth sailing as you might hope. And then actually we've got people to pay, and we're doing a lot of ad hoc stuff. So it wasn't retainers and stuff like that. But during all of that, we kind of tried to fix some cash flow issues by creating this small product. And that small product was Flick. At the time, was just called #tool. Make sure we just had a constant flow of income and whatnot. And there was a day we were kind of looking at it and going, all right, so that made about 5,000 this month. Plus, how much does it cost us? Well, see, everyone working on it was, founders. So that kind of doesn't count as money. It was kind of just our time. And we're like, it's 95% profit. We're like, okay, so we made four and a half, in profit there. We're like, as an agency, we're very bad, not a streamlined agency. We're like, how much money do we need to make as an agency to make that kind of amount? We're like, a lot, a lot more, and it's a lot more hassle. And we were looking at ourselves and kind of going, do you know what? Maybe we should just do this. And that's kind of what we did. And Flick was kind of born. We kind of just took it from there and kept working on it, growing it. And it definitely got more traction than the agency.
And where are you today now with Flick? It's grown to over 1 million ARR, right? How many customers do you have?
So we're just over 3 million ARR in dollars. I think 20-something thousand customers. We're a team of 20 now, which is pretty exciting. We kind of had experience with having employees and stuff, but we didn't, not like this. And I think there'll probably be lots more learnings to come maybe when we're a bit bigger as well.
And for the people listening at home, Can you explain exactly what Flick does as a SaaS product?
So originally, we were kind of best known for being like a hashtag tool. So helping people, kind of like an SEO tool for Google, but for Instagram hashtags, and helping them find them, manage them, track what's working, that kind of thing. And then now we're kind of moving out into a more broader space, which is kind of general management and growth of your social media accounts. So scheduling, analytics, hashtags, that kind of thing.
How did you initially get the advantage in terms of knowing what right hashtags to pick and over the other tools out there? Like, what made you have a USP at the beginning?
At the beginning, I think, there was something to be said around, there were some tools out there were some free ones, but they weren't really focused on becoming a business. And that meant that they didn't have a massive, focus on UX either. So there were tools in the market, but they weren't amazing, and they weren't they were either really expensive or free. And then there was a lot of issues there. And but there wasn't many. And also we have a couple of founders. So I definitely don't want to take too much credit within all this. We have two amazing co-founders. And it was actually Loic who kind of had the idea of making Flick. But essentially the way we kind of, in terms of actually from a data side, it was more looking at like, well, if you're posting on a hashtag with 20 million posts and everyone on there has like 10,000, 10, 100,000, whatever it is, and you have 50 followers, and, if you want to get results from this, you want to get on that top post page. Instead of, using a hashtag like winter, for example, you might have snowflakes today. I don't know, something like that. It's a bit more of a niche thing, but in the same topic, and that will kind of help them.
And then what was behind the decision to expand beyond just the hashtag tool? Is that come with like the revenue you've generated and looking at ways to invest that to grow further?
Yeah. So for us, I think we just couldn't help ourselves. It's really hard. Like, we're a lower ticket SaaS product. So, we're looking at like 10 to 15 pounds a month on our like main plans. And then you have like a few more, a bit higher on other plans. But we had a lot of people being like, this is amazing, but now I have to pay for this and this scheduling tool and this analytics tool and all of this stuff. And it's like, I just wish I could have it all in one place. That to us was just like, do you know what? We've got a kind of, we definitely thought about the business a little bit differently at the beginning. And it was a little bit more lifestyle focused, a little bit more like casual. And we kind of saw that and we're just like, it would be almost kind of criminal to ourselves to not try and take advantage of this opportunity of like, we have loads of customers. They really love what we've already made. They're asking for more. Now we've got to find like more specifically the best bits to build, and without like kind of depleting all of our resources so that we can't do anything else. But yeah, it was just, we just really wanted to serve people, and there was a very, very clear issues with existing tools in the market around scheduling and analytics.
So you mentioned there that originally it was more of a lifestyle business and you've got co-founders. So was it difficult to then make the decision between you about changing that to become more of going to a growth stage again? How did that conversation go?
Do you know what? It was, I think it was very natural. I think there was like a couple of like pivotal moments that happened in there where we were like, we're kind of focused on hashtags, and we don't know like how that's going to play out in the future. And there was a lot of different things. But then we actually got an email from Facebook. You guys are like the top users of our hashtag API, and we'd love to make like a success story on you. And we saw that and we're like, do you know what? Like, that's quite, that felt like quite a significant thing for us. And we kind of, I think all in that moment were just like, we could probably do this way better if we took this like to the next level. Because we weren't casual about it, but we weren't like reinvesting most of the profits. It was like, we'll just kind of reinvest a bit and then, whatever. So yeah.
What was the kind of changes you made internally because of that shift in focus? Did you have to then hire more people? Were you quite lean, or did you already have a lot of employees when it was just the hashtag side?
Yeah, so we were pretty lean. I think there was probably about 4 or 5 of us for a long period of time. At that point, we decided, right, we need to ramp it up. So I think we then we tried to push to around 12 people. I think that was actually also one of our biggest mistakes. Not the hiring, but waiting that long. We didn't really know as much about hiring as we do now. I really wish we had hired earlier, but it's also one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. So it was the first time we were kind of doing something like this. So not taking advantage of the momentum we had. It was especially through COVID, it was some pretty crazy growth. So we could have kind of kept pushing that rather than doing a chunk, waiting a while, doing a chunk. Like it should have been a bit more of a continuous onboarding without going, oh, we really specifically need this one person. Let's get them in as soon as possible. It should have been more of like let's keep our options open and always speak to people. And then when we find someone exceptional, bring them in regardless of if we need them in this exact moment. I think that would have been, and my other founders, co-founders, I'm sure would agree as well. We've had this conversation a few times.
What's your hiring process now then? Do you hire people before there's necessarily a job role for them?
So we definitely have like very clear, like, okay, we're going to be looking at this. I think what helped us is more quarterly planning. We kind of took things very much like, let's just focus on customers. Let's just dive into their problems and focus on product, which I do think was the right thing to do at that period of time. But in order for us to foresee things and look at what we really need as a business, I think quarterly planning really helped us. And also, just having gone through the hiring process quite a few times really helped us understand how to do that better. All three of us have never worked at a company. Like we've only ever done our own things. So like we don't have like loads of experience in hiring to rely on, or how other people do this at other companies. We've kind of just had to learn it as we go. You have to learn a bit, but it's also beautiful because you can take this very like blank page approach and kind of go, okay, this is what all the best companies say about this thing, but what do we think about it? And how do we look at this from a blank page and go, how do we get what we need to do done?
What other mistakes have you made in that hiring situations in the past?
Not being clear around expectations, I think, was probably like something that we definitely, again, we kind of like brought these people in and we grew the team. And then we were like, cool, we did it. And then we're like, oh, how do we make everyone happy? and like, how do we make sure that people, there's alignment in the culture, there's alignment in, what they want out of the business, what the business wants out of them. And how do you bring those things together and make sure that there's a way to do that, whether that's through one-on-ones, kind of career stuff. And it's also like, because there's a perfect, well, maybe not a perfect way to do everything, but there's a very good way to do a lot of things. But you also have to balance like what the business can actually do feasibly. Like, in an ideal world, we'd have an exact career framework for every single type of employee at the company. You would have really, really solid one-on-one structures. You'd have all these perfect things in place, but you've also got to understand that there's not, you've got to do what's right for the business at the same time. It's like, cool, what can we do that gets us closer to the what we want, or what's going to make everyone happy, but also not completely suck away all of the resources from anyone who's senior at the company.
With the founding team, how much do you think the early success and understanding influencers is down to your own previous experience as essentially an influencer on YouTube? Was it able to help you get the first clients? Did it have much of a bearing? What were the transferable skills?
It definitely helped with the agency stuff. I think my work with Flick specifically was definitely more like an amalgamation of things I learned as a YouTuber. Like that was being, marketing, but also designing stuff. But then as an agency, I handled a lot of like campaigns. I also handled like building landing pages and paid social and stuff like that. So a lot of the early days, my focus was on marketing and growth. And then as things kind of progressed, I actually went more into actually solution designing, so product design. So I think we have a really interesting co-founder setup. And I think that's probably, it's allowed us to be like very, very lean at the beginning, because we have Loic, who essentially sits in as our, if you were to look at it as like a little product team, you've got Loic as our product manager, and he kind of leads like, okay, understanding exactly what the customers need, what is the market saying, getting all of that research together. We would then brainstorm a lot of stuff together and make sure we have like, okay, this is the right solution. I would kind of go away and work on it from a design standpoint and be like, what could this look like? What's the UX on it? How do we actually, are we solving the problem correctly? And then Andy would build it, because Andy's our CTO. We kind of work on marketing that and stuff like that. So we had this really like interesting feedback or like, I guess, product development thing between us as founders. That gave us a bit of a competitive edge, because some people don't really like working with, like being a solo founder or whatever. I personally loved the fact that we had co-founders with very, very specific skill sets, because we could just focus on being the best at our little area. So I could just go into like marketing and product design and some finance stuff all the time. Loic could focus on the customers all the time. Andy could focus on building an incredible tech stack and building really, really good, product. It was just that we could just really, really, really focus. And I think there's something really special in that. If you're a one person founder, I can imagine you're going to have to hire out those roles, but it's going to be a lot harder at the beginning. But yeah,
I think that's one of the really difficult things for many solopreneurs, because when you're hiring, it's not quite the same as having a co-founder, because the founding team is more of a team, right? Like you've got the same interests, you've got the same alignments. Like you said, so with your YouTube channel, did you manage that all by yourself, or did you have a team around you for that in those early days? Can you see the difference by working with a founding team now?
Yeah, so YouTube was pretty much just me. Like I definitely had like a couple of my flatmates definitely kind of sat in as like interim creative directors at times of like just helping me with some ideas, or like being like, they'd be like, do you know what, Sam, it would be really funny if you did this, and I'd be like, I'll do that actually. So there was definitely some, from an idea standpoint, I definitely had some help, but everything else I did handle a lot by myself on YouTube. But it's very different. Like it's so nice now being with a team, and outside of just the founding team, actually having a community of people that are maybe slightly different goals, because it's never going to be exactly the same, but it feels really nice, and it's supporting as well. Like when you're like at the very beginning, it can feel very, very daunting, and you also have to deal with a massive amount of uncertainty as well. And you got to kind of love that. You've got to kind of, I think that's probably the difference between an early, when you're an early founder versus joining the company as a later employee. It's like at the beginning, you're like, this might work. Whereas when if you join the company as an employee, you kind of like, there's a level of like understanding on the way forward. What I would say with YouTube is it's so attached to your personal like self that it can become quite hard, because for example, like, sometimes you might have a week and you're just like, do you know what? I just don't feel that, like, I don't really want to put a camera on. I don't really want to like be quite energetic. Sometimes you just want to like not, but you can't, you have to get on camera, and you have to do this because you have a schedule and you need to batch film content or whatever it is. So you can definitely burn out a bit. And also I think, burn out physically, but also emotionally. I do think you can do the same as a founder, because like, you are emotionally driven a lot. You're going to be very like emotionally tied to what you're building, so you can feel like it's some sort of self-reflection in a way. if this doesn't do well, then I'm not doing well. But I think it's a little bit easier to detach when you build like good, I guess a good mental framework around like who you are, who your business is, and being able to detach those two things, because you don't want to get caught in a world of every time the business isn't doing amazing, you feel like you're failing. It's simply, okay, there's a problem that we need to work on, or whatever it is.
And does it help because you share the burden with other co-founders? It's not all your responsibility. It's a shared responsibility where you can talk together, work things out together.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I'd say at least once every quarter, like we'll kind of all have a little mini pity party about something. And it's sometimes it's nice to just sit in the pity party. Being in a 1-person pity party is not very fun. Being in a 3-person pity party is way more fun. So, you do have that like support, whether it's just that, one thing that's just like, it's been knocking you back, and you can kind of chat to them. And sometimes it's not even about having a conversation around it. It's sometimes like, you might be awake at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and just go, oh, do you know, I just can't get this thing out of my head. And I can just write a message into, our little group chat and go, by the way, guys, like, I'm thinking about this thing. Is this a problem? Is this not a problem? What's, and then you kind of release it out. So I think, obviously having extra co-founders is an amazing thing. But if you don't have that, there's many other ways to do that. It's like, for example, I'm in a Slack group called Indie London, and there's like a meetup every month and stuff like that. And there's loads of founders in there, and being able to talk to those types of people as well, or people who are going through something similar is an amazing thing. It's like to build that kind of support network and just not tackle it completely alone. Because, if you're someone that does like being with people and does, you consider yourself someone as a people person, having that a community around, is really great.
What got you involved in the community side of things in the first place? Like, how did you find Indie London? Indie London is related to Indie Hackers, right? The overall.
Yeah, so it's like kind of like a subgroup of base indie hackers, but specifically in London. But it's a really, really big group, and there are people from outside London in there as well. To be honest, actually, it was from my neighbor. I was chatting to my neighbor once. I just met them, and I was like, talking. I was asking what they did, and they were like, "Oh, I run this SaaS company." I was like, "Oh, no way, me too." I was like, "I've never met someone, another founder that's not my co-founders." And he was like, "Oh, you need to join this little Facebook group." And I did that, and I think that was I've got like many, many friends now from there, and I really couldn't imagine, like, I feel like I would have, if I hadn't have met that person and they hadn't have said that, I would have lost out on so many amazing conversations and so many learnings. And just it's nice to speak to people where ideas can be like harbored. It's like someone can be saying something which is completely irrelevant to whatever you're doing. They're like, what, I had this issue with like churning customers, and I was looking at this, so we made this newsletter, and then you're like, oh, that's actually something. There's something in this news. Maybe we can take that newsletter, but maybe we can tailor it to our use case. And just being in those conversations, I think sets yourself up for success.
Have you had any connections through Indie London or through other places that you think have really made a difference to Flick.tech? Like, have you got any solid examples of the conversation you've had and what they've done then opened up?
Yeah, so I think one that stands out immediately is Saba from Veed. I remember kind of going there, and his company at the time was, and our company, but in similar ranges from a revenue standpoint. So it was like very interesting to meet someone who's like really, really closely tied to going through similar problems or whatnot. And at the time, we weren't doing as much SEO. We were doing some SEO work and whatever, but I had like one conversation with him, and I was just completely wow, this is a massive thing that maybe I was looking at a little bit like it's not right for us right now. And then I was like, no, we need to get started like tomorrow. And since then we've made massive movements forward on SEO, and maybe we would have made massive moves forward on SEO anyway because we were already doing it, but maybe they wouldn't have had that urgency that we kind of took back to the team after meeting him and stuff. And
do you have any tips for the audience on how they can improve their SEO?
I think the biggest learning we've had is that one of the things that I think we're kind of working out still at the moment is we were like, okay, we need SEO stuff, and we need to ramp this up. So we've now kind of massively increased our traffic, by like 10, 20 fold. But we're like, oh shit, like conversions still haven't really they've obviously increased, but not at the same scale. So there's a lot of moving parts to SEO, and don't get too focused on the traffic side. I think build traffic, work, find things that work on that, but definitely make sure that you are looking at how you're pulling people from a blog post or whatever it is that's maybe within your industry but not 100% tied to your business, and work out how you're going to pull them through to a place where they're closer to your business. Whether that's gated content or a newsletter, or just basically taking them from someone who's reading an article that has some relevance to your industry to someone who is somewhat connected to your business. And then you really have to break that down depending on your product. We're a little bit, I think we could pull a lot more people through if we weren't a credit card upfront trial. But obviously, that's something we have to adjust our strategy to deal with that. If you have a freemium vibe, you might be able to capitalize more on conversion from early. But yeah, I'd say really focusing on each part individually and not getting too caught on some of the vanity metrics.
Are there any other changes you've made to your website in the past couple of years about increasing conversions that you found made a huge difference?
We've run so many, so many. Do you know what? It's I don't think I could pinpoint one exact thing that we've done. That's this is the one thing that doubled our conversion. It's not it's not quite as easy as that, unfortunately. But I think having this mindset of continuous attempts and tweaking it, adjusting it, moving, and just consistently trying, and not looking at when you run an A/B test and it doesn't do anything. No, that was just the wrong thing. So now we're going to try again with something different, and having that kind of just you can't give up. You just have to keep going. I think that's probably the best thing you can do when it comes to conversion rate is just not accepting that. One thing I would say that is probably was probably one of the most impactful things we did was our pricing strategy. When you create a product at the very beginning, you're probably going to have an idea on what people will pay and whatever. A year passes and you're still charging the same amounts, but you have amazing new understanding of your customers, of your product, of what your competitors are doing, and maybe they've changed their pricing. I think pricing is probably an area where it's you have the ability to massively change the unit economics of your business. So if you've got a lot of factors in there, you've got churn, you've got conversion rate from a trial, you've got how many people are starting trials and what plans they're going on. So if you can kind of better align each individual bit, if you get slightly better pricing, you might reduce your churn. But you've also got to look at, well, is that reduction in churn actually better for the business, or do we actually just want to focus on this one customer segment, for example, and just try and get the most amount of money out of them because we serve them best, and we can actually focus better on them So pricing strategy and focus on customer segments, I think, is from a conversion, I guess not really a conversion, but more from like a general, point. That would be a good point to start.
The product, when it started off, when you were still had the marketing agency, were the initial customers people who were like, using your marketing agency and it's kind of an add-on? Or where did those initial people come from? How did you get to where you are now, where you're trying to grow with SEO and grow these other methods? Where did those first people come through the door?
So we did have a couple of clients that were like, interested in hashtags and stuff like that. Like we had one client that was was like a Unilever brand. And we also had like some smaller brands and stuff in there. And they were definitely interested in it. That was 3 people, and at £15 a month, it didn't really, I wouldn't say it made much of a difference for us. The way that we kind of started from a launch perspective was using influencer marketing. We built kind of a really, really solid affiliate program. So we did like 20% of revenue generated by an affiliate goes. So, if an affiliate makes £10 and they pay us £10 every month, you'll get £2 every month. So we kind of started there because it was something that we were somewhat, decent at already from doing those campaigns. But it was also very low risk to the business because we didn't have to put capital up front to like test out, here's £1,000 for a post, let's see what we get back. Because we were in a very specific niche of like marketers and people that are teaching Instagram, it was almost like it was almost beneficial for them to be an affiliate rather than doing a pay to play, because like they could help people with this problem they're having around like their audience. Like, how do I use hashtags? We're like, here's a tool. So that was a really big thing at the start. We had quite a lot of paid social going out at the time. That was a fairly like decent part of our, initial customers. But also just loads of word of mouth. I wish I could say that all of our traffic was like really calculated and whatever. We did as much as we possibly could from, going down channels that we knew worked for us. But we had always had a really, really massive direct kind of growth. Like it was just, people would tell their friends and, people would tag us on Instagram, and it would just very organically grow, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because that means that can be quite a good signal to you that you've got something that maybe has a level of product market fit. Maybe it's not, you can't say, people are sharing it, that's product market fit, but you've got, good organic growth is a good indicator towards that. But the bad side is you're not in control. You can be doing amazing one month and not as good the next month. So you do have to make sure you are doing things to combat that. And that's probably one of the things that we're kind of very focused on at the moment is how do we make our signups more predictable? Because right now, it can go crazy. It cannot go. It's a little bit like it's not. We're not in control as much as we'd like to be. But it's probably a good problem to have. But yeah.
And looking forwards now, what's the goals you have for the next year or 2 years with Flick.tech? Like you said, you're adding more features to make it more fully featured for influencers. What else is there in the pipeline?
Yeah, so I mean, we were definitely like focused on creators for the first few years of our life. But we are now definitely kind of like looking at serving social media managers and people who work at brands a little bit more. We realized that we have so many of those people as well, and there's some features that we didn't have that was really necessary, like being able to invite a team member, having a client in your account, and report stuff like that are really, really important to those people. So we're definitely looking at kind of expanding out of just serving creators and entrepreneurs really, really well, but we do serve them very well. So we kind of feel like we've got a bit of room to kind of look at other things. One of the other things is getting rid of Flick.tech as our domain name. So we actually own Flick.social now, but we haven't quite worked out how we're going to transfer everything over to that. So we're kind of waiting on that. So definitely make the name a little bit nicer, because I'm not sure about Flick.tech as a thing, but Flick.social sounds a little bit better. But from I guess from an overarching standpoint, we really want to nail the foundations this year. We had this amazing hashtag product, and we still do, and we're still improving that as well. But we really want to make sure that when we're building other things like scheduling and analytics is already there, but scheduling specifically. But yeah, so laying really, really solid foundations this year, really improving our internal processes, making sure that we've got the foundational features, which are maybe not as glamorous, but mean we can have, we can invite team members to it and stuff like that. And I guess for us this year is integrate as many socials as possible. Right now before it was like Instagram hashtags only. Now we were like Instagram hashtags and analytics and scheduling. And now it's like, well, if you need to schedule to Instagram, you probably need to schedule to other things. And we've had a lot of feedback on that. So Facebook scheduling, TikTok scheduling, LinkedIn scheduling, basically as many socials as possible, to really add as much value as possible.
And is your plan to, at the moment, it's all bootstrapped, right? Is your plan to continue in that vein, or do you want to look at getting funding to grow faster, or what's your plans on that side?
Yeah, so we have been bootstrapped up until this point. We've got, revenue's quite high, so we can reinvest a lot, and we can keep pushing forward. And that is kind of the immediate plan, but we are kind of considering our options around, raising and stuff like that. If we can find the right partner, we're definitely ready to have that conversation. But I wouldn't say we're actively, raising funds right now.
It seems like there's a lot of ambition here in terms of like growing across different platforms, and there's obviously different tools out there at the moment. And like I'm somebody myself who I used a couple of the other competitors you've had and haven't had the best experience with some of them, and I'm in that middle zone. What is it they think that you can really stand out upon, like when you're going into other socials? And the hashtag tool is obviously what you started with, but how are you planning to like take on these other brands that are trying to do similar things in your market? So
there's definitely, obviously outside of just scheduling, there are other things that we're working on, but I think one of the main focuses for us is understanding. A lot of people apply this like one size fits all to socials. For example, like when you're scheduling to Twitter and you're scheduling to Instagram, they are very, very, very different things. For us, we want to make the best Instagram scheduling experience. We want to make the best Twitter scheduling experience. We want the best TikTok scheduling experience. We want a massive focus on what the main value is people will use our tool to save time and improve their results. So the better the experience and the more we can like really, really dive into these kind of big problems as well as the small problems inside of, what other tools have, we believe we can make the experience way better. I feel like, we kind of have this round wave of like, social media tools, but like they're kind of like just scratching the surface of what's possible. So for us, we want to just focus very deeply, really, really understand exactly what people need and build it way, way better.
And looking at the team, how big would you ideally want to make the team? Is it as new problems come up, you want to grow further, or have you got like a plan in motion of we want to have this many people by this time?
I think if you had to ask me this question 6 months ago, I probably would have given you quite a straight answer on the number of people. But I think actually we've realized is that like it's not about the number of people, it's about the quality of the people, and it's about having the right pairings. And it's almost like I think you can do like you can obviously go and hire 100 people and aggressively push something. But as a bootstrap company, I think we want to be a little bit more like lean in that. We don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we spend most of our time not focused on the product because we've got all this bureaucracy and whatnot. And although it's kind of like maybe not, it's probably going to have to come at some point. I think right now we want to build a very, very good team, which is a medium size, and we'll grow it, very, very, I guess efficiently rather than going like scale first.
Because you are a YouTuber who then started your own businesses, is there anything that you think that because you've never worked for somebody else, that you've maybe done things in a different way than other people would have, and it's actually worked out for you really well?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things we've done, like first principle thinking, is just like it just is the answer, and like you can apply it to everything. And I feel like we haven't been biased by the world, which means we definitely have our shortcomings, but we haven't been biased by a lot of things. So we can definitely attack things from a blank page, first principles thinking, and just do it. So I think there's a lot of things. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint exactly which ones, but being able to apply that first makes you feel very free. It makes you feel very happy. Like you get to be like, oh, is this the right way? It's like it's just a sole focus on getting to the best outcome rather than all the bits in the middle.
And looking at that, what do you think you've learned the most from? Is it from your experience? Have you had mentors, or what other things have you learned from?
Failure, I think. The agency didn't do great. So we learned a lot about, how to make really solid unit economics in the business. You learn from your failures as well as your successes, but with the hiring, with the management, with leadership, basically just doing it wrong quite a few times. It's like you're kind of like following this path, like, you want to go from here to here. So we've kind of gone like, oh, maybe not that way, a little bit more this way. So we've found our path, but it's not been the easiest. Maybe there's a more efficient way to do it, but I think with what we had and our experiences, we did all right with it.
Is there any books or podcasts you listen to help you out to learn more?
Yeah, so I mean, I really love. I think like books is probably like where I'd lean to more, but like for example, like one thing that I know when I was younger and like as from a marketing standpoint, like I knew I was quite good at the conversion rate optimization. I knew I was quite good from the numbers side, and like the ideas, but my copywriting wasn't that great. So there was one book that I read called Everybody Writes, I think by Anne Hathaway. I don't know if that's how I say her last name, but that was probably like one of the most like, wow, like this really, it's like a really like modern way to think about copywriting. And I loved, like, it was so actionable. I think that was like one book that just absolutely changed what I thought was possible of myself from a copywriting standpoint. I kind of was like, oh, you know what, maybe it's just not for me. I won't do it as much, whatever. But I read that and I was so inspired. And now I feel like I have a much stronger copywriting base to go from. That's a very like practical, like if you want to get better at copywriting, order that book today. But I also feel like from an inspiration standpoint, like, there's a couple of classics, like Shoe Dog, for example, was just, I read that and I was like, wow, this is just such an amazing story to read. And it just fills you with joy inside. So that one, I think, definitely helps from all the inspiration side of things. And then podcasts, like I've really been enjoying Steve Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO. And it was just some really, really interesting thoughts on like managing people and like how you approach things and getting the best out of other people and stuff like that. And like, sometimes it's not like, that's not what a lot of the podcast focused on, but I often find with podcasts that I'll be listening. I'll be like, even if it's not 100% related, I'm like, wow, I can really apply that in other areas of my life. And yeah, I think just surrounding yourself in knowledge of other successful people is definitely going to help.
It's been a pleasure to have you on, Sam. Where can people find out more about you and also about Flick.tech?
I'd say main place would be on Twitter, which is just Sam King FTW. It's my old YouTube name, but haven't changed it because I'm scared to get rid of the old blue tick. Obviously, if anyone wants to get in contact, Sam at Flick.tech. Always happy to hear from people. I'd say that's me. For Flick, the main things I'd say, like if you care about social media marketing, or you that's something that is beneficial to your business or yourself. We have a really, really incredible newsletter, which does like industry news, tips and tricks, stuff like that. I'd say that's the place to go to. Obviously, you're more than welcome to check out the software, but if you just want to be kept up to date before anyone else, that's the newsletter is a really good place to go to.